We can see the people, the paper is published, and you can see the people who put a lot of effort. We have Duncan, we have the Nursing Council, the Ministry of Health, and also the Kenya Medical Training College, including the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. The outline of the presentation, I'm going to give a this midwife will be able to deliver about 90% of essential sexual, reproductive, maternal, and neonatal health and across the life course. And this also could actually save up to 4.5 million mothers and their babies by the year 2035. Midwifery education, particularly in the low, middle income countries, has experienced some challenges, particularly in the quality of care that is given, in the content, and also the duration of the content and between different countries. The barriers to quality midwifery education and training in the low, middle income countries. As Peter explained, we also have deficient curriculum in terms of inadequate content, insufficient and poorly trained lecturers. Midwifery educators are not connected with the clinical practice or not having opportunities to update their clinical knowledge or skills. In most cases, we find that the students sometimes come and give you updates as a lecturer in the school. So I think that's why it is important for the lecturers also to have the updates. And of course, as you know, educators are more confident with theoretical classroom teaching than the clinical teaching. That one I know the lecturers will agree with that. So skilled attendance at birth is important for the provision of emergency and newborn care. And this can avert about 83% of maternal deaths, stillbirths, and neonatal deaths. KMTC reviewed and updated the nursing and the midwifery and clinical medicine reproductive health curriculum to integrate the EMOC component. After this, there was a two-part capacity building for the reproductive health educators as trainer of trainers. And this was aimed at the lecturers having the knowledge and the skills, and then to pass the same to all the other lecturers in all the MTCs. The paper reports on the change in confidence of the PreService midwifery and the clinical medicine educators on how to deliver the EMOC updated curriculum after the training workshop in Kenya. The design, this was a cross-sectional online survey assessment before and after both workshops between September and November 2020. This was during the COVID-19 confinement period. Intervention, it was a two-part workshop where we had the virtual for the theoretical component and a face-to-face for the practical component. The updates were aimed, the key updates were specific in EMOC, particularly respectful maternity care. That was a component that was missing. Communication using the SBAR tool. Then there was also the maternal early obstetric warning sign, the MEALS chart, WHO surgical safety checklist, and the introduction to MPDSR. There was also assessment for providing effective feedback And this was aimed because most of our trainings are more of theoretical. We wanted to have some interactive session during our teaching, and that's why the component of including this other presentation was very important. The lecturers were 51 in number. We had 19 males and 32 females. And these were the lecturers that were actively involved in teaching reproductive health, assessing the students, supervising the same students at the Kenya Medical Training College. This included the educators from midwifery and also from clinical medicine teaching reproductive health, actively involved in assessing and teaching. 35 KMTCs were involved. And of course, you can see the delivery of the training. It was a blended type where we had virtual and the face-to-face approaches. For the training content, as I had said, it was a pre and post type of study, and there was anonymous online assessment for the lecturers. So the training content, there was assessment, which is pre and post, anonymous online assessment, designed using a checklist in Google form. The self-reported confidence was covering a few key areas here. We wanted to see whether the lecturers were able to facilitate online teaching, practical teaching skills, including demonstration of the skills, scenario and stroke simulation teaching, facilitating small group discussion, just to be away from the traditional lecture method, peer review, and assessment and giving effective feedback. Most of the time, the educators are blamed of not giving very effective feedback. You know the way we normally give our students feedback. So this was a component, a very important area to focus on during the training. The confidence was rated using a 3-point Likert scale, and we wanted to know whether the lecturer not confident, whether they were somehow confident or extremely confident in the key issues listed above. The ethics or ethical issues, there was clearance was not obtained for this particular study because the study was approved by the Ministry of Health as part of the project monitoring and evaluation plan. Participants gave an informed consent, and it was anonymous. No participant identification was collected. For the analysis, we used proportions and also looked at the p-value to see whether it was statistically significant. The results. For the demographic characteristics, again, females were more. They were 32, and the male were only 19, again giving us 63%. For the candidate, the nurse, midwives were 32, clinical officers were 16, and the medical officers were 3. Management role in addition to teaching, again we had about 25, half of the participants who also had other management role apart from just teaching midwifery. So confidence in facilitating online teaching, the educators' confidence is, you can see, 2 felt that they were not confident at all, somewhat confident. Initially there was about 30, and then after the study, of course, you can see about 70% indicated that were extremely confident. That is on facilitating online teaching. Key to note here, before the start of the workshop, 31 out of the 41 educators had used Zoom or Google Meet for online virtual teaching platform. The confidence of educators in facilitating of different participatory teaching methodology. For the skill demonstration, you can see there was significant improvement from 44 to 96. For the scenario stroke simulation teaching, we had 46 to 92. Teaching competency, small group discussion, we had 46 to 94. Peer review and feedback, 47 to 77. And giving feedback to students, 46 to 92. So we can say that there was great improvement in the level of confidence. So in the discussion, we are saying interventions improved the educators' confidence in facilitating online teaching and learning, and also using stimulating participatory teaching methodologies to enhance learning. There was also improved confidence of educators to deliver practical-based EMO, enhanced curricula using a broadened approach. Again, this boosts student participation in teaching and learning. A pathway for competent, skilled health personnel at the time of graduation to enable our students to be more competitive in the market. Conclusion, we are saying that the blended training improved the confidence of pre-service educators to deliver the updated midwifery and clinical medicine curriculum. Additional support and upskilling through regular mentorship and continuous professional development on life-saving EMOC skill is required so that these essential acquired skills and attitudes can be retained by these educators. So those are our partners and we acknowledge them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are seeing something that is recurring on and off, that it is required of us to be mentored, to be followed, to be monitored, or to monitor ourselves every so often so that we keep the skills and also the quality. I'm so happy that the aspect of respectful maternity care has come in, or it is incorporated into the training, because that is what used to make our mothers go to the TBAs because of the respect they are given. So if we have the knowledge, we have the skills, we respect the mother, then they will come and give birth in our facilities with a skilled birth attendant, and by so doing, we will reduce the maternal morbidities and mortalities. Thank you very much, Millicent. So can we have the next presenter, please? Yes.
Apologies, this is the last time we are seeing names.
We are not bored of seeing names.
There are new members who joined in, who can be allowed to introduce themselves, please.
Yes, please, the new members who joined our team, Karibuni Sam, you can introduce yourselves, please. Rachel.
Okay, good morning. My name is Ryan Mutai, and I'm the next year. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
I hope we're not going to be monos. So yeah. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Mary Kokonya. I work for the British High Commission or the UKA. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Yeah. Somebody else? Yes, please.
Hi, how are you? My name is Alice Achim. I work with MK. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to introduce them. From their portfolios, you must have realized who they are to me. I'm always reminded that it's only a boat that is not serious with life that will invite a lion to the dinner party. Failing to introduce them, I don't know whether I'll eat tomorrow. your details are short. I would like to speak shortly about a systematic review of the national continuous professional development processes and systems for the youth educators within the low and middle income countries. From the start of these sessions, we've been hearing about trainings, capacity strengthening, trainings. But then in their conclusions, we will also realize that training alone is not everything. It's new. Training peke yake sio kila kitu. In our village, we Peter the one sort or something. I know, you know beards. Beards, yes, this one. Which animal has the best beards?
The goat.
The goat. Now they say that if beards were everything, then the goat would preach. If training was to be everything, then we would not be involved ourselves in so many things that we are doing. Just do the training and forget about everything. That's the need for us to have. We wanted to just see what happens. We are talking about training. Can we have systems that can ensure that these things are sustained within our systems, so that even when we do not have a training, people have a platform where they can improve, at least reassure their competencies and skills in terms of what they usually do. So I give a small background to this review. What exactly we went out to find and what did we find, and then conclude. This slide is also very current in all the presentations we try to do, because we are talking about midwifery educators and midwifery education. So I will not repeat this one. This one, also part of it has been already repeated here, but then I just wish to emphasize that WHO emphasizes that for us to be able to improve the quality of midwifery education, then midwives and midwifery educators need to have mandatory CPD opportunities where they can update themselves in terms of their competencies and skills for us, and assured self-practice, competent and effective. And this will also help us to ensure that we are at least moving towards the achievement of the UHC and the maternal SDGs. Now, despite this emphasis from WHO kwamba midwifery educators and midwives need mandatory CPD, as another review was done in the African region to just find out if there's anything around CPDs for these educators and midwives. And only just about a third of the countries at least had some component of this CPD thing for these educators. And that is why we went in specifically to look at what is available, what are the approaches that are used on the systems within these CPDs, what is the content of what is available for these educators, and have they been effective. So we will also look at a component in terms of the effectiveness for these. This systematic review has been registered under the Prospero as required for all the systematic reviews for you to be able to conduct it. So we developed a protocol and registered it at that site, Prospero, just as I mentioned, and we are defining our CPD in this case as just this opportunity for a professional to be able to maintain, improve, or broaden their knowledge and skills in what they are usually doing. Because if you do not have an exposure for you to improve this, your competence, you end up going to teach things that are likely to be outdated, and then you start again getting these things where we are always blamed that the educators are not updated. They are telling us outdated things in the hospital when we come to assess students. So we conducted a search strategy for all the relevant electronic databases to just see what has been reported in this. And this was not enough. We also did citation searching for some of the papers that we thought were relevant, and they could lead us to other papers that have important information regarding this CPD work. And the commonest terms we were focusing on here, we looked at the CPD itself, and it is not a common thing, so we broadened our search to include things like faculty development, capacity building, just for us to be able to get at least all that has been covered around this area in terms of for this midwifery educator. And then we focused our search specifically to the low and middle-income countries based on the World Bank classification of countries in 2019. So we did also a search by including each and individual country then under that classified as a low and middle-income countries. Our search was for the studies that have been conducted between 2000 and the year 2021. 2000 because at least much of the improvements and innovations around midwifery education, things to do with funk, were happening around this year 2000. This is the period we believe there was much innovation and improvement around areas of midwifery training. So we were able to get around 300 papers looking at all those databases. But unfortunately, looking at the exclusion criteria, only about 9 of the papers met our inclusion criteria, with 7 reports to be included in these studies. Of the 7 reports, 6 of them are from UNFPA, and 1 of them is from the International Confederation of Midwives. We also did an appraisal of these papers just to be sure that we are dealing with the right quality of papers in terms of ensuring they are quality for us to be able to include each of this paper within this review. And due to the heterogeneity of these papers, some of them qualitative, some of them quantitative, we did a narrative synthesis. We used a narrative synthesis approach where we are looking at these papers qualitatively and just to be able to see what they are each speaking about and conclude by having an overall picture of what these papers are saying. As results, not much has been covered in the country, in the low and middle-income countries. The countries are quite many, but if we look at what we have here, some of these papers, some of the specific papers were coming from Nigeria, then a number of them were combining different countries, and then for the reports, they were covering a number of countries, about 42 to 47 countries. Those are the UNFPA reports. Those countries all within the low and middle-income countries. And as per the objective, I also present the results based on the approaches, content, and the effectiveness. Now, when you look at the approaches commonly described for CPD, we have about 5 approaches. I will not speak about them, 5 of them. I will concentrate on 3 that I think they are key. The commonest approach used for these capacity building approaches is the twinning approach. Now, the twinning approach involves a higher middle-income country teaming up with a low middle-income country. This can be in terms of either funding or technical personnel, or the development of the program. Some of them will come from a higher income country and then they come and give the low middle income country because it has worked there, and therefore they bring it to the low middle income countries to see whether these are approaches that are working. Good thing we've seen with these twinning approaches from the papers we've reviewed, the success of these collaborations or these engagements is that anytime we've had this approach, the localization of that content to within the specific country where people are going to use it, the adaptation of that high income content to the low income to suit the needs of the low income country is very crucial for the success of this approach. Another key feature of this twinning approach, we've had a component on mentoring, where the high income country colleagues support the low income colleagues through mentorship, just to be sure that when they leave, then all is not lost. At least they've created capacity within the low and middle income countries. Then I looking at the green field and that directed by the regulators, ordinarily it is expected that each country within their professions, they know exactly what their needs are. And therefore, these are the two critical players who are supposed to come up with these CPDs, because we already know what is ailing us, and therefore we are able to align this content to what we need, to what exactly fits us. But if you look at the studies, the evidence out there, only 2 studies at least have an element of a national medical professional body, or the midwifery associations, or the nursing cancer associations, be participating in coming up at least with a CPD program. Meaning it is an area that is really not explored. Local countries are not actively participating in terms of coming up with these specific contents for their people. Regulated by educators, globally it is known that if something is being directed by the regulators, these are the people who know exactly what our nurses need, and therefore in terms of their design, their programs are likely, evidence has shown that their programs are then even more legitimate to the people who take it. But if you look at the evidence available from the local countries, just one paper at least had an element of a local regulator participating, and this unfortunately was in Nigeria, not even in Kenya. Now, if you look at the content that some of these 16 papers, that is 9 studies and the 7 reports have covered, there is a large element of this covering at least aspects to do with curriculum and educational approaches. These are the teaching approaches specifically for the educators. However, what has been deficient in these things to do with the formative and summative evaluations and assessment for students, this has been an area that is really deficient within the approaches that have been studied. And also things to do with feedback from teachers to the students. This is an area that is also missing, and also the aspect of mentoring and follow-up support by teachers to the students. Then a good number of them at least have covered some component of emergency obstetrics care. Then some of them have found it useful, at least for the nurse educators and the midwifery educators, to participate in leadership positions, because we are expected to lead in the advocacy, and as leaders, then we are able to participate in decision making for our midwifery educators and our practitioners. And therefore some components about education research have also been studied, and then program management and evaluation has also been covered. In terms of the evaluation, I also narrow my reporting on this based on the Kirkpatrick level that I mentioned earlier, that looks at the 4 levels. So what we've seen from the report from the 16 papers is that very few of them, just about 3 of them, at least covered something by asking the educators to see whether the programs that were available, they were satisfied with them, or those papers were meeting their needs. Only 3 of them were able at least to get this feedback from the people who are using that. And in terms of assessment of whether there is any improvement in terms of knowledge and skills, again, fewer papers here, 9. But at least the good thing is that at least for all the papers, there was an improvement in terms of the knowledge and skills for these educators on the various components that they were able to participate in. When we look at behavior, at least most of those papers, this is an area that we at least cover more often. And the good news here was that at least for the people who participated in this program, they were able to participate in the midwifery curricular reviews. They were able to innovate their teaching methodologies and improve their confidence, even to teach students. And some of them have reported individual growth as professionals and also as researchers, which is a good thing for both, because you want to grow as an individual at the same time giving higher scores for the institution, because the higher the institution, also the better for the people working there. Then looking at the outcome, students have also reported improved outcomes in terms of their performance, in terms based on what they have been taught. And then those educators who also participated here a good number of them have reported advancement in their qualifications. Some of them have received promotions based on these programs they have been able to participate in. Some of them rose from lecturers to heads of departments. Some of them have progressed from now the teaching institutions to ministries of health as key decision makers there. And a good number of them have also improved in terms of their capacity as scholars and researchers, which is a good thing for us to be able to improve what is happening around. Then we need to also be updated with what is happening globally and contribute to that body of knowledge. So in conclusion, in over 100 low and middle income countries that we know, we only had about 16 papers. And for these 16 papers, this work was in countries that are just slightly less than 10. So there is really no evidence of these programs within these low and middle income countries. And for the regulator accredited CPD programs, where there was only one and it was not even a fully program in Nigeria, this is also testament that there is really very low participation of our national regulators in terms of coming up with programs that can be used to improve the capacity of the educators. And therefore this is also a study that gives a strong indication on why we need to design and if you look at a specific program such that after trainings, then people can have a system where they can be at least accessing to improve their competencies and skills. And in one of the presentations, my colleague will speak about this specific educator program that we developed.
This is where we teach. We have, when going for interview, you must present your license from your regulatory body to see that you are a safe practitioner. So I'm very happy that we are working together with the Nursing Council to be able to ensure that our midwifery lecturers are up to date in the knowledge, in the skills, in our behavior, and secondly, in our personal development also. Because as we develop the programs and the universities, the colleges, we also need to grow as individuals, to be good scientists who can be able to design programs and be able to implement. So I think it is time for us to have the panelists come in front. Yes? Okay, sorry.
Has confused you, sorry.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm just presenting on behalf of Duncan. He is the PI for this next presentation, which is a protocol that sort of builds with what we have been talking. And maybe by now, for those of you who are new in LSTM, you will realize the vision for LSTM is to be able to improve health outcomes, especially in MNH, through partnerships in research and education. So, one research is just building onto the next and to the next, and the mission really is to improve the outcomes at the end of the day. So for this study about the evaluation of the feasibility of a midwifery educator continuous professional development program in Kenya and in Nigeria, it's a protocol. This is going to be the outline, sort of similar. I love that lady, she's like the old staff nurses. Yeah, and the background also is really similar. I will not really go into it. I think Duncan has also mentioned a lot about the need of designing a regulator-improved midwifery educator program, so that, in some forums, some educators in midwifery have said, we always are interacting with midwifery education and midwifery journals and books. Do we need CPD points to renew our licenses? But I think from the studies that we have seen, we realize that even as midwifery educators, we need to have CPD points to be able to, renew our licenses and to improve the way we teach midwifery. I think it was mentioned earlier on, but I can also say it again, that when we talk about CPD, it is about the means by which members of a profession like us, midwives, improve and broaden our knowledge and expertise, our competencies, especially in the skills activities, and to be able to develop the personal and professional qualities required throughout our professional midwifery lives and practice. So that is going to be the definition that we are working with. So LSTM has developed actually a CPD program that is going to be it is going to be delivered through the WCA platform. So most of us are aware of it. And so this study is about testing the feasibility of that CPD program. And it's going to be a blended midwifery educator CPD program for sustaining and improving the education, the competencies of the midwifery educators in as how they deliver their teaching, how they do the student assessments, how we monitor and evaluate the students in terms of the feedback we give, and also how we use the digital innovations in teaching, midwifery competencies. So it is the CPD program is made up of 20 hours of self-directed online learning and 2-day face-to-face learning. So it is a blended learning program. And the CPD program also is aligned to the ICM Essential Competencies for Midwifery Practice and the National Code of Conduct for Midwifery Practice and Education. So there is a need to test whether this CPD is feasible and whether it is practical and whether it meets the objectives of the interventions. And so we really want to test it. So that is why we are using a feasibility study to see whether it is appropriate, whether it is needed by the midwifery educators, whether it is relevant and sustainable in answering the question, can it work? Can midwifery educators, do they really need a CPD program, and is it possible to be able to implement among the midwifery educators? So the key focus on feasibility studies is about the acceptability and the relevance, and whether it is practical, adaptable, whether it is even demanded, or whether it is really possible to integrate it within the system. Like Nursing Council, are they able to integrate it within the Nursing Council CPD programs for the professions who register with the council? So the study objective broadly is to look at, is first of all to design the CPD program, then implement it, and then evaluate it. And this is going to be evaluated in lower middle income countries. The specific objectives will be using the Kirkpatrick model that Duncan talked about. That is to document the participants' reaction and assess their change in knowledge and their change in skills and confidence in terms of the teaching skills, and also explore what are the enablers and barriers to participating in the CPD program by midwifery educators. So this is the diagram that has flown around by now. I think if you go home with nothing, go home with the Kirkpatrick's framework. It's an interesting one to use, especially when you are using mixed methods, where we measure the reaction, learning behavior, and the impact of a program. So the method we're going to use is a multi-country, multi-site intervention study design, where we'll be using mixed method research design. And we are also going to have the intervention by using the self-directed online CPD modules and practical sessions, the face-to-face sessions in the host CPD centers. And then we are going to have self-directed online modules and then the practicals and the assessment skills in a face-to-face, as we have said. And the participating countries possibly selected is Nigeria and Kenya. And both universities and middle-level colleges are going to be selected to participate in this study. And the sampling and sample size, as a general rule of thumb, we are going to use at least a sample size of 30 or greater is going to help us to estimate a parameter. Using the self-directed online, we expect to have at least a convenience sample of 200 midwifery educators, 140 of them in Kenya and 60 of them in Nigeria. This is going to be very purposive according to the total number of teaching institutions that are available in both countries. And for the practical components, we are going to use a convenience sample of 90 educators, 60 of them from Kenya and 30 from Nigeria, over 2-day face-to-face workshops. Only participants who would have completed the SDL CPD modules will be, invited to come to the face-to-face. This is because this model has been tried in other studies. I think what Millicent presented and others, we've seen that this model has been tried and tested and improved to be able to give us results that we can be able to really align with the objectives of the study. And the educators from the training institutions that have not benefited from previous regular mentoring of midwifery educators on pedagogy and EMOC skills will participate. So we will try to look for those midwifery educators who have not been able to participate in what LSTM has been offering for midwifery educators. So data collection at level 1, we will use end of module satisfaction online evaluations using a Likert scale to just be able to measure the fit for purpose for the CPD program, and also be able at level 2 to do pre-post tests for the knowledge acquisition for the midwifery. How much was the CPD online self-directed learning, how much knowledge have they been able to receive. And you notice that the issue of retention, knowledge retention, so is the CPD helping the midwifery educators to retain this knowledge that we really want to retain. And then we will also test the teaching skills during the face-to-face by observing, also using an online checklist, how much they have been able to retain during the face-to-face. So additionally, we are also going to have qualitative surveys. We will conduct them with PreService stakeholders using both online and key informant interviews to just inform how the program can be improved in terms of its design, uptake, and feasibility. So on analysis, we will use descriptive statistics to just describe what is happening within the study variables and binary logistic regression models will be used. The pre-post test changes in knowledge are going to be measured using linear regression models. And then the micro-teaching skills, we will also use mean modes and medians for descriptive statistics. And we will do thematic analysis of the qualitative data. So this study is currently undergoing ethical review at LSTM IRB and Kenya and Nigeria IRBs. So we hope to receive those IRB approvals before data collection. And then the participants, we will of course have the participant information sheet and be required to sign an informed consent for voluntary participation into the study. And data will be identified, especially during the face-to-face. And of course, even the online sessions and the results will not be shared to their managers. Like if my dean should not find out that I wasn't scoring so well in my CPD. And now and then she could write for me a poor performance note. Yeah, so it will also not form part of the appraisals, for the educators. So I think we are doing well with the work plan. So we hope that by the end of July, we should actually have the results of this study out in publication or in our workshop. If we had another KML, probably if you are in attendance, you will be able to get in touch with the results for this study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mwansia. I'm sorry about the small confusion, but no problem. It is a visibility study that they are going to do, and this will inform us, especially to know the enablers and the barriers, so that we can deal with them and put strategies in place to ensure that we run smoothly the midwifery educators CPD program. So I really appreciate the plan for that by SSTM, and we want to believe that we will get the approvals and the study can be done on time as we prepare, because we really need to keep ourselves updated as midwife lecturers. It brings a lot of confidence when you are doing when you are teaching and you can demonstrate very well. And Dr. Lydia Mwansia, after the training we had, put in place in our university a lot of effort and planning for the students in the skills lab to practice before they go to labor ward, and they look forward to that, and all of us feel good when you are doing what you know and you are confident. So every 2 years, if we can be updated, I'm telling you the care will be great, and I want to believe we'll have even more students wanting to join with you for their postgraduate programs. Thank you very much. Let us have the panelists. Yes, thank you. I want to believe you are noting down your questions, and I can come here so that I can also be able to look at the members. Yes. Yes, let's see the first set of questions. We have the 3 presenters there. So, yes.
Good presentations from all of them. The question, okay, no, the question was actually for your presentation. Maybe you can also answer. Why Kenya and Nigeria? Of all the low and middle income countries, why Kenya and Nigeria?
Like I had said, it is a very purposively selected, because we wouldn't say that Nigeria represents the whole of West Africa and North and West, or even Kenya representing the whole of East Africa and Southern Africa, but it's really just convenience sampling. I don't know whether Duncan can say anything more than it's just convenience.
Why purposely select Kenya and Nigeria?
Yes, another reason is that, you see, with feasibility studies, there are things that guide feasibility studies, and one of them is funding and budgets. So the budgets for this study is specifically designed by UNFPA within the current programs being implemented within Kenya and Nigeria. And you look at the context of the training of midwives in Kenya and Nigeria, they largely represent all that is happening within these low and middle-income countries, where we have these, it's not midwifery specific, it's a double-edged training, nurse midwife in both settings, although with a few components within Nigeria that at least we can have some components representing specifically midwifery training. So largely guided by the funding.
Thank you, Ben. Let's take 3, then they can answer, so that, yes.
Even I'll ask Andy, it's a build-up on that question, but I'm not so sure if she will put that question. Okay, yeah, it's a build-up on the same. And you'll allow me now to add more questions on this. Yeah. I like that question, and even the feedback, the answer generates another question, because the intention is about practicability and feasibility of this project, meaning the intention is on generalization. Yeah, so when the intention is on generalization, and the testing is being guided by the funding, then there's a missing link between the two. So it may be important to do a feasibility between countries that have certain, characteristics. And when you talk of midwifery, you're talking about regulation, perhaps also on education, training, so that there are certain factors that you'll say now, countries which have these 2-3 characteristics, this model is generalizable in those countries. So you may need to look into those aspects besides funding, so that you can be able to generalize the findings. So I think that was an addition, maybe not a question. But my addition, Chair, is there are 3 questions.
A maximum for each person, 3, so that others can have opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, one is about teaching on updated curriculum by medicine. One key finding among the participants was that about 50% of them, besides teaching, they are also doing administration. Okay, so meaning they do teaching 50% of their time. Yeah. So how do we relate this? Because it was about online teaching, the ability to do online teaching using the updated curriculum. So how do you relate the finding, given that just 50% of their time is available for teaching, perhaps, because 50% is on administration among the population. Half of them, all of them, half of their time they do administration, and half of the time they are doing teaching.
Maybe if I would answer that question, you find that there's a lot of shortage of lecturers in most of the KMTCs. You may find that in a KMTC we have about two lecturers who are in the midwifery section. So in most cases you will find you are the HOD and also you are also teaching reproductive health. The main thing is about shortage. Maybe Madam Catherine?
I've heard what you say, and I think what you are saying is true. But also you need to, perhaps to define what is this leadership role, because some of them will be head of sections. Doesn't necessarily mean they are going to do office businesses. So there are some, like she has said, you go to a school, they are given other responsibilities. I'm the master rotation leader, and that's still administrative. But it's not like they are what you understand by the leadership that perhaps, other than being the head of department, they may not be the principal, they may not be going to the offices, but they are within the faculty and doing other leadership roles. So they do have the time for teaching, which would occupy most of the time, but once in a while they'll be called to sort out master rotations, clinical placements, and the other issues.
Okay, yeah.
Am I allowed also as chair to say something? When we talk about shortage, it cuts across. It cuts across, and I think some institutions have a certain percentage, like if you are chair of department, your teaching load is this amount. If you are a dean, your teaching load is this amount. So really teaching is our core, and we cannot say because we are in administration we are completely out of teaching. It is only to ensure that you are in touch with your teaching, but still you do that
Leadership.
the leadership.
So, yeah. Okay, fine. Well, okay, maybe earlier in the morning also had a presentation about a review. There was a graph here showing the people have taught how long ago, and we had even extent of, they have taught 6 months or 6 weeks ago, in terms of teaching. Yeah, so it may need to balance. Could it be that among the sample that was selected, that study involved people who are largely, participants who are largely in administrating than also doing clinical, teaching. Okay, so you need to relate the two. Now, my next question is on the systematic review. I think that was by Duncan. Yeah, I think it's when an area is green, like CPDs, a systematic review is a good study to understand the larger view. The findings are good. Out of the 300 papers that were reviewed, I think just few, are they 7 or? About 7, which were analyzed. Okay, 9. Yeah, 9 and 7 reports. It might also have been necessary for us as an audience to know why the injustice that befell on the others, why they were not fitting within the analysis. So such a picture will give direction. It adds on the trustworthiness and validity of the findings so that you can be able to follow through. Now, besides that comment, the question is here now, if...
And that should be the last one.
No, the previous was not a question. It was a follow-up. So, among the models of CPD, to midwives, there was an aspect of where the regulator, I don't know which term was there was training and another one, I don't know.
Greenfield.
Yes, greenfield ETC, yeah. When you talk of twins, you may think of also single. But could there be a conflict of interest where the regulator, as part of the models, is also a provider of the CPD and regulating the same? Because a regulator is what? A regulator is supposed to regulate and ensure that those who are being licensed are conforming. So do you set a standard and then administer the same and people talk of I'm not a good baker, but people talk of baking a cake and doing
Eating it the same.
Yeah, something like that. So maybe just a comment on the same. The last question, the last one, is about this feasibility of CPD programs. Now, we are seeing 140, but a total of 200. We are seeing 140 from Kenya and 60 from Nigeria. Any justification the same? Is there a proportionate distribution? Why the difference? It's actually less than 50 to 140. Okay. And then we may need to talk about consenting for these participants, because they get into theory and then now face-to-face. Okay? Is that information within the consent so that people know, if I finish the theory, then I get into face-to-face? Could it also influence the participation? Yeah. And could there be some tea and mandazi?
So many questions you now have finished that.
That's the end.
I think Benson's questions are more. So I'll start from the last one, going upwards. The issue of consent for people to participate in theory and then they know that they are going to participate in the practical. Yes, there is a participant information sheet that will be provided to these participants prior to them participating in the self-directed learning. And in this information sheet, it is also clarified that you will complete this, and then there is another phase where you can only participate in the subsequent phase after completing this theoretical aspect. So that information is already provided. The only thing here is that of the 200 who we expect to complete the theory, not all of them will participate in the practicals. And this is also guided by the strong indication for a feasibility study that is largely guided by the budget to support That's why we have the numbers. And that leads me to the next question on why the disproportionate number of teachers or educators from Kenya and Nigeria. Also because of the same budget issues. When we computed the budget for training educators in Kenya and Nigeria, and because of the vastness of the Nigerian country, it is so expensive to get lecturers from within the Nigerian context to get them into one place and have this training as compared to Kenya. And this is just a feasibility study, not aimed at generalizing findings. It's just for us to have a proof of concept that this is something that can work. Can it work? If yes, what are the things that need to be in place for it to be able to work? And what are the things that maybe teachers need to have, regulators need to have, and the ministries need to have in place for educators to be able to participate in this blended approach for learning?
Before you get out of there, Duncan, knowing that there are more who are going to do the theory, how do you choose from that large number to come to the 6? What will be your guiding principle?
So these educators are coming from several institutions. So one of the key criteria will be ensuring that at least each institution is represented and we are not having multiple from an individual institution.
I think that should be very clearly indicated, otherwise it is giving us how do we decide.
We had also said the other criteria was finishing the first phase.
Yes.
What if all of them finish?
Yes, if all of them finish, now that is where the aspect she's bringing comes in. And then the good thing is that when we look at this number of 200, we are talking about mid-level training colleges and universities. So if you go into those specific institutions, you realize these numbers are small and we are likely to achieve the target of 200 easily. And like if you have, say, these 200, all of them coming from, say, KMTC, you will struggle to achieve these 200 to complete the self-directed online learning within the stipulated time.
Okay, just answer those others quickly so that we give other opportunities.
There's another question about reasons why some of them were excluded from the systematic review. You know, systematic review sometimes can be funny. Some papers, even with a clear criteria, you will still just get papers that are not supposed to be there. They are talking about something completely outside CPD, but because there is a mention of maybe the word educator, then they are included. So if a paper is not speaking specifically something about CPD, then we exclude. And then another thing is that within these low and middle income countries, there are specific countries that we are aware of. Nursing is distinct from midwifery. And in such countries, we are keen to exclude papers speaking specifically about nursing and not midwifery. But for countries that we know they offer double-age training for nurse midwives, where we had the nurse midwives, we were able to get them within that. And even after expanding the scope to include obstetric nursing teachers, the numbers are still very low.
Thank you. I think we have cleared. Next, was you still have another question?
I'm even very sure the next question is for them.
Yes. Any question? Any person with any question for any
I
of
just wanted to complete, and I think maybe Benson's question wasn't so well answered in terms of the nursing council, you know, developing the CPD program and then, you know, regulating as using the very same. And so this study, the feasibility study, the objective 4 enablers and barriers, is going to actually give us from the qualitative interviews from the midwifery educators and other stakeholders, including the council itself, should be able to answer that question. It's actually one of the research questions within this feasibility study, so maybe we should be able to answer your question with the results of this study.
Thank you, Dr. Mansia, for supporting. Yes, Ryan?
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice presentations. I'm really happy with what you're doing. Now, I want to follow up on Lydia's question. I think when it comes to, let's say, the regulation of either medical practitioners or the nurses, the role of the regulator is just to set a requirement that you should have so many CPD points. So that means then you attend, I don't know, several courses, collect the points, and then you present. Now, my question, for those, since you did the systematic review, maybe in those countries, for the educators themselves, who is really the lead in setting up a CPD system for them? I think I still don't understand who is really responsible.
I think that goes to the big guy. He's the one doing that thing.
Nora is very clever. She's asking me, but she's looking at me. So for the systematic review, we really focused on the low and middle income countries. We didn't have anything for the high income countries. So in terms of also setting the CPD points, I think it is a global practice that it's the regulator who does it. And then, as Benson and you say, is it an issue of conflict of interest that you set something and then you also want to direct it? Yeah. So that is one thing we also looking for to answer.
Some of the high-income countries, like US, for example, where I was there, they used to exempt educators from having to go through the CPD, going to get class, to go to class and such like, because you are expected during the time teaching, you are getting new information, you are publishing and such like. At that time, I don't know what it is currently. If you are in teaching, automatically your license is renewed when it expires without having to prove that you sat for these hours, you did this. But I don't know what it is now. I've not checked. As long as you are in teaching, you are good to go.
I think Nursing Council provides a number of options even for the educators who are participating in teaching. And one of them is, as you're saying, publications. And I think for the council, publishing is one area that is really having a lot of points. Just one publication is able to get all the CPD points required for a year. So they have provided several avenues such that as an educator, you may not maybe have access to these online trainings, but you are able to actively participate in research and publish. But then from the previous findings, studies that are presented here, what has come out clearly is that our educators are so good in teaching theory, but the skills component are the things that are missing. And those are the things we now want to see if there is a way educators can have an opportunity to be updating themselves with these specific skills.
Yes. And I think also under what Duncan has said, I was with the nursing, at the Nursing Council, and there's a requirement, even educators need to have their CPD points for them to review the license. Because I think they have found that the educators, as Duncan is saying, they are deficient when it comes to the skills. So they need to enhance, they are saying that they must also go through the same process as the others.
So,
yes.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I was just trying to think when my colleagues asked about who is actually fit to be able to offer these points. And I was just trying to think that since an area that you're trying to venture in, try to look at this high-income country and look at what is the practice. So that now, I know like you're going to be like an authority in this line very soon to just offer direction that actually this is what I'm being able to gather. Because I'm sure even the Nursing Council is trying to really also try to try it. The council and this other body, they're trying to just try their best to see how can they roll it out. But if we can actually get a better performing, look at even the Australia, let's look at even Norway and see how are they doing their thing in terms of regulation. That would be very, very important for you to even now offer some advice that actually this is what I've been able to gather. And I'm sure maybe that it can also come out later. The other bit is, I'm looking at our system whereby for the CPD, we are talking about them being able to go online, to be able to, let's say, do self-directed learning and actually attempt. That entirely also, just maybe it's just that now, am I able to answer some question theoretically? How about the practical components? As we offer these CPD points, what is the other part of the world saying about this practical component? How is it being rated? I know we may not have maybe an outlet answer, but it's just a matter of think through and say, how can it be? Because I know if I can go online, I can go read about some things, answer, that's it. Now, does that really make me that competent? If you see another question that we need to think about, which I'm thinking that let's look at it and see how, as you just try to see how you can enrich as you go through that kind of maybe the effectiveness and see this what are some of the observations.
Thank you. Yes. Sorry, I forgot your name.
My name is Alice. Sorry, I'm not a midwife, I'm not a practitioner, but I'm talking like a lay. I'm a lay of the clients. From the information I've gathered in the other countries, for you to get CPD point, you have to have worked in the clinical area for some specific hours. So I think that can, in the issue of non-COVID, that can be adapted. Like, you have to prove you have been doing this thing specific hours. It's a regular thing. Probably that can enhance now the educational bit. Now you can add the practical bit. Yeah.
Thank you for that input. I'm sure they are noting and
actually I've been teaching since yesterday to ask you, the educators, both from Kenya Medical Training College and the universities. Evidence has suggested that in terms of the practical skills, we also acknowledge how we are deficient. What is our view that as educators we need clinical practice ourselves to be up to date? Because like for doctors, I've never seen a doctor who teaches but doesn't practice. But if you look at the practice for the nurse midwives, majority of the nurse midwives in the teaching sector do not practice in the clinical sector. Is it something we are likely to say, yes, we need to allow ourselves some hours to practice?
thank you for that question. If we give the HOD,
Okay, thank you. I think
we will answer and he'll come to you.
mine is a comment and also maybe food for thought, because I don't know whether this feasibility study, as we are discussing, we know what is happening in terms of CPD. I can sit today and do all my CPD and get my license today. I can even pay someone to, thank you for adding that you can pay someone. And I think we need then to perhaps include that element of what impact this CPD that we have been doing has on us educators, because as she says, well, it's good that is the teachers are going to, as I teach, I have to research and I have to read. But practicality of this CPD in terms of going on, so that besides the online CPD that you're doing, there is evidence that if you're teaching midwifery, then you must show that I went to Kenyatta National Hospital and actually maybe even conducted a delivery. It's possible for a teacher to go and assess a student and they are not efficient themselves in the delivery. That is possible, and I want to imagine it is happening. So I think it's a good study. Only maybe we need to start thinking of what's the practice currently and what perhaps, I don't know if it is totally, you have reached point now, you have drawn, these are the only objectives that you have of the study. I don't know.
If the chairs of departments can be able to allocate, like those doctors are allocated the days they are covering, and we get report also that they report back to their chairs. I want us to be self-regulating. We have had some instances where the hospitals want to regulate us. I think that is wrong, because they are not. I'm not answerable to the hospital, but I'm answerable to my chair of department, who knows my requirement by nursing council that to be able to be an efficient teacher, I must be able to spend this minimum hours in the hospital. And that will be the only time I will be allowed to go to do the online exam and do the practical. So there is evidence by virtue of allocation than the feedback. I think something must be done. We must put things in place. Yes. Yes, Ruth.
Okay. Totally, personally, support. I totally highly support. Our KPIs, you only have four when you go for your appraisals. And one of them is if you've been attending the clinicals yourself. So you're expected to, and you can take a day, 2 days, as long as you agree with the supervisor. You go to the clinical area, she can write letters, wherever you want to go, she can write a letter for you. So that you are, see, the other thing is the resistance from the hospitals. Like me, I'm coming from Afrika, I want to go to Kenyatta. You're coming here as who? What are you coming to do here? Yeah? And so if I go to Afrika, I'm very limited in what I can do. You know, Afrika has some limitations in being autonomous as a nurse. So there's that resistance, but I totally agree. I was with a doctor recently, and we're talking about the same thing. And he was telling me they always wonder as doctors, because for him, he's a lecturer at UN, and you know, they go to Kenyatta to work. And I was asking him, does KNH pay you? He told me no, and yes, he's expected to be there several days in a week, like you have mentioned. And so he was asking me, how about you midwives? What do? You just teach? What, you're not updated in your skills? We always wonder as doctors what you do. So I am in support, and I remember even personally before COVID, I used to go for my clinicals close to where I used to live, and just to do, and I would meet students, you know, students from other universities, and we are there, we are doing FP with them. But of course, after COVID, I'm not going back, but I'm hoping to resume. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Somebody who has not spoken, please. I think she has a hand up.
I'm just following the discussion, and I said I'm a student. And I'm just thinking, I don't know whether Duncan you have the capacity or the influence to champion for a context analysis, like as part of the systematic review, so that you sort of beef up your findings with a context analysis. So you could just do like a qualitative study to find out exactly what is happening, good thing your colleagues, so you can be able to get information to your saturation point, and then also looking at the guidelines, because I've seen on the documents that you found, I don't know whether there is anything on the guidelines that are there, so that in comparison to what you found, how is it comparing to the guidelines in terms of safety? I think that could help.
Thank you so much. We have 10 minutes to finish. So anybody who has not spoken, yeah, you have spoken, yes.
Yes, I'm not spoken, but what I wanted to suggest, or just a thought to do is going from what other institutions like medicals are doing in relation to basic life support and advanced cardiovascular life support and such like trainings. Is it possible for us to think in terms of establishing a center, for example, in Kimo, having a center where we can maybe send, for example, the program you've been running with LSTM was sampling some institutions that were, and even the lecturers that were involved in the trainings for UMO, and not all of them were work they done. So what happens to the others who never had a chance? Where do they get this information from? Where do they get this knowledge or skills from? So is it possible to have a center where you can be going to get this?
Yes,
Duncan. Allow me to respond. Then Dr. Afrika, then Catherine.
Okay, I think, let me ask you my chair of department. You know, I'm doubling up. He's my boss and I'm his boss. So let him answer.
Yeah, I'll just summarize my comment. Yeah, that can say that's something has been denying in some cities. And I think she has made it very clear. I think let it fit into a recent question and see how we can get answers by whichever design the method it will be helpful. Two, you know, in human resource, whatever drives action is incentive. Okay? So could there be a difference in terms of incentivization where we are saying this cadre goes to the clinical areas for service and midwives don't? That has been cited by Duncan and our sister in front of me here. Saying that some go there, give service, okay, clinically, but some, like the midwives, don't. What is the incentive? Could there be an incentive doing the driving? Okay? So that will be part of what will be in that study. And therefore, something else that a suggestion that might be required maybe is, though it needs a lot of policies here and there, if the training institutions where we send the students could have a way of expecting the trainers, the educators, to offer service there. Say on a certain day, you are assigned and scheduled on the roster, okay? So that on a Friday morning shift or so, it is Milimo doing a morning shift, okay, assigned fully, okay, and therefore it's expected that I report there and offer the service. That may work. But if the institution which is independent of the clinical area assigns, then there is no, nothing demanding to offer service the other side. I could be elsewhere doing something else, but I'm not expected to be on the ground. So they are allocation by the training institutions independently will not affect action. Yeah. And then an incentive must, the mandates issue.
Oh, okay. So the issue is very important. But what I wanted to say, members, is your name again was Maybe I've asked whether LSTM has put in place centers, and this is what I expected Benson also to respond to, that LSTM, I think, as they exit, they are put up to universities, University of Nairobi and Moi, and KMTC Nairobi and Kakamega, to be able to act as a center for us to be able to update our knowledge and skills. So that has already been put in place. Yes, they are working on it, but they have already identified. Thank you so much. Somebody had
just a minute.
Yes, yes.
Just to also respond to my good friend, I was laughing when he was talking about an aspect of being putting a lecturer on a duty rota. Now, assume I'm the COD, I'm the chair of department. My senior is Dr. Chalada. How do I allocate her? There are things that without a legal framework, without a serious policy, whereby we also involve the NCK, those regulatory bodies, and even CUE now, there's a lot of shift whereby CUE has come up with serious problems whereby they feel like they have to control. So if we can have a document that is clearly outlining what's our role, whereby now any hospital directly we're functioning in, we must actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 clearly stipulated. I'm sure now we'll take up that role without even any question. But now, without that, you see, I remember there was a whole debate whereby now I was being asked by my seniors that how do you think, I was told, can you try to see whether you can have an allocation? I was also asked, we are allocating as who? And where are we going to do what? Are you serious? We have to go and treat patients. We are not going to do that. But now later, when you actually have a legal framework or a policy, now MOUs between the institutions, if they are properly, strengthened, actually it can be realized. Then the other bit that we're talking about is that now also just encouraging each other that we can be able to do some of the same. It can actually work. But otherwise, there's a lot of resistance and they just don't want to go to the hospitals.
Thank you. And there are times Ben went to MTRH in the morning and he's told, what have you come to do? Yes, in the morning he asked what are you coming to do? Yeah, so really there's a lot we need to do, but one thing we all agree, we must be there. Yes. We must have our skills. And we cannot just do it in the skills lab. We must go to the patient for us to empower our students. Martha and then Mateka, and then we will finish and take a photo for the group here before we go. Yes.
Fine, thank you everyone, and I like the discussion. We are really learning a lot, and I want to comment on this idea of going to the hospital to work, which may not be really possible for us in the teaching fraternity, but there is a way we can get to the hospital. We can go to the hospital in the name of clinical instruction, like what we do in our medical training college. What we usually do is we allocate each one of us, depending on the sections, at least once in a week you get to the hospital. So like if you are in the reproductive health department, you are going to go to the hospital, then you are going to have a session with the students who are having placements in the reproductive health sections. Like if you have some students in the MCH, you will have some time with them, discuss with them what they've learned, and if there is anything you have organized to go and demonstrate, you go and do it. And in that case, you're also learning from them. You're asking them what is happening in the hospital. Is it at par with what we are teaching in theory? Then they'll tell you now, SP, instead of giving at 16 weeks, we are now at 13 weeks. So in a very good way, you're also learning the updates that are happening. Then you also get to labor ward, wherever the students are. You get a case, go through with the students. Like if it is a pathograph, you pathograph together with the students. So you are there the whole day. So you are teaching them, like you are trying to bring the theory and the practical together, and you're also learning little by little the updates that are happening in the hospital. So I usually find it very educative because on the other hand, you are teaching the students and you're also keeping yourself abreast of what is happening in the hospital. They are also telling you the challenges that, Madam, you talk of a sterile pack. Here in the hospital, we don't have a full sterile pack. This is what we use for deliveries. So you get to know the challenges, you get to know how to address them, and also get to know the updates. So I think that is a way we can get to the hospital and be able to get to know what is updated, be also able to know what our students are going through and support them and move on.
Thank you very much. Madeka?
Thank you. I again want to comment on what the issue of having lecturers, say from the universities to the hospitals. It's a challenge to many universities, and in particular speak about the University of Nairobi, our department. We've been having it as a struggle to follow the students in the clinical areas and then have a separate schedule to go to the clinical areas. But what we decided recently is that we liaise with the clinical areas to have the lecturers put in the usual rota. So that means a day within the week when each lecturer should go there to their area of speciality and work with the nurses and the other people there. and at the same time you also check on what the students are doing. So in essence, is we want to have the students in the clinical area and a lecturer at least once a week there, in the event of keeping updated on what is happening and also following up on what the students are doing.
Thank you very much. I think we have seen, all of us have seen a need, and it is very clear. So every institution is trying the best way, but I think if we have minimum hours specifically from our regulator, I wish that would come out, then it can be cutting across. Because of the current shortage, for example, the way we teach ourselves, I have an overview, maybe in another class, for my course. I have an overview, I have a tutorial, I'm tutoring, and for us, you tutor any course. You must not be a special person in that area so that you tutor. So I have already had an overview, I have a tutorial, maybe I have another community-based activity outside. So it's not the lecturers are really resisting. The multi-dimensional expectation. So we need also to lobby and get sufficient staff, which government is not hiring for those of us in government. But all that is important is we have to strive to ensure that we get the clinical skills, and with LSTM helping us through the 2 universities and 2 MTCs, I believe we shall be somewhere, but the regulator could give us minimum hours. That would be able to make us...
I can confirm.
Yes.
That the guideline for educators,
yes,
that has been, if it has not been passed,
yeah,
it was discussed, and there is a minimum hours that an educator is supposed to go to from the nursing council perspective.
That would be great.
If it has not been released, I did see it. We discussed it, and I think it has been there as mandatory.
Thank you so much. I want to say this has been a great group discussion, great presentation, the panelists, and everybody. I really appreciate the work we have done. We need to take a photo before we go for lunch, and then we say a prayer as we go for our lunch, and we dissolve the team. Thank you very much. Request, Mother, you pray for us, then we can take a photo and leave at our own place.
So let us believe and pray. Our loving dear Father, we want to thank you this time. Lord, we thank you that we asked you to be with us from the beginning, and sure you have been. You have helped us to discuss different ideas. You have helped us to share different wisdom. And Lord, we just pray that it is our desire to be able to put this into practice so that we are able to provide quality care to the students that you've given us to mentor and even educate. Lord, as we leave this place, we pray that you are going to help us. Sometimes it is so challenging, oh Lord. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed. Sometimes we feel so worked up, oh Father. But we pray that you are going to help us in this noble job that you have given us, oh God, so that we mentor these students. As they come out, they be able to take care of the community well, oh God. We thank you and we bless your name. As we are going for lunch, oh Lord, we pray that you are going to bless it as we take it for our good health and glory to you. And as we move to complete this training, we pray that you will be with us and will help us to put into practice, oh God, whatever good practices we have learned from here. And if there is anything we've not done well, oh God, we pray that you'll even help us to leave it and go back to good track for the glory and honor of your name. For in the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.
Yes, tell us how best where do we stand best to capture us?
So you got embedded,
As we go towards that side.
Yeah, we can go towards that.
Sisi twende huko.
Ama wengine waketi na wengine wasimame.
I think we should all sit so that we are in a session.
Really? We've taken photos with sessions. Oh, so now it's a group photo.
It's a group photo. My name is Veronica Musiega. I'm a registered nurse, midwife. I work in Vihiga County where I coordinate reproductive health services within the county at county level. I will say that Vihiga really benefited in the FCDO trainings, especially EMOC, where we have been able to train a very, I think over almost even up to 180 reduction in maternal mortality. My name is Veronica Musiega. I'm a registered nurse, midwife. I work in Vihiga County where I coordinate reproductive health services within the county at county level. I will say that Vihiga really benefited in the FCDO trainings, especially EMOC, where we have been able to train a very, I think over almost even up to 180 healthcare providers on emergency and obstetric care. And we've also been able to train our doctors, our theatre team on advanced emergency care that I think almost up to more than, I will say around more than 10, yes. And following those trainings, I think we've really seen a reduction in maternal mortalities, because initially we used to record 10 above, but following the trainings that we've had, we've really been able to reduce, because I can say for the year 2019, we lost around 8 mothers. The year 2020, we lost around 5 mothers. Then 2021, that is last year, I think we lost, is it about 7? And so far this year again, we have had a further reduction, so that for the financial year 2021-2022, that is July 2021 to June 2022, I think we have lost so far 3 mothers.
LSTM has been supporting Uasin Gishu for quite some time. We've had, I think, more than 8 EMOC trainings. The first trainings were fully funded by LSTM, but I think the last 4 or 5 were partnered between LSTM and the county. And once after the trainings were done, we were able to have a pool of mentors, courtesy of LSTM. And so currently, we are actually able, almost all our facilities do have trained mentors who are able to mentor their colleagues on the various skills in maternal and newborn. And with that, that has actually translated to an increase of skilled birth attendance in Uasin Gishu County and a reduction in the necessary referrals from the lower facility to the higher facility.
And most of our healthcare providers are now competent enough to provide most of the obstetric emergencies, including emergency resuscitation of the mother. They are able even to use the pathographs very well and be able to monitor, detect obstructed labor early enough, and even call for ambulance early, or even seek for help early enough. Then quite a number of them, again, are able, when there is postpartum hemorrhage, they have really learnt a lot. They are able to put up IV fluids very fast, and even put up interventions to reduce the bleeding. That is using the Dr. ABC approach. And then even use of the UBT. By the time they even refer our clients to the main referral hospital, you'll find that even a uterine balloon tamponade has been put, and they've really tried very hard to reduce these mortalities.